All right, folks, we're back with our next episode of Strategic Command World War II World at War. In our last episode, we finished off the British troops near Groningen, the raiding force in northern Europe, and we started the advance on the new Soviet capital at Kubijev. Kubijev? Here on the Volga. We have not a terribly strong force of troops advancing in that direction, but we're at least feeling out the enemy. Meanwhile, we've also started advancing on the Soviet morale objective at Gorky, which will allow us multiple prongs of advance on Perm, which is the final Soviet capital in the event that their current one falls, and it also would allow us to sort of swing right and come back toward their capital from the rear, potentially avoiding a lot of fortifications and troops along the Volga. It's an option potentially. Additionally, we just reinforced 3 panzer units in Moscow, and we rebuilt a panzer unit here in the Caucasus. In the Caucasus, we successfully eliminated a Soviet army here in the north, and we're threatening Baku, although the Soviets do have some heavy armor in the area. We're also going to move some of these guys here, some of our air units south, so they can hopefully support against the Soviet armor. And that's the situation. There's a lot of holes, a lot of exposed areas with not terribly strong forces that the Soviets could lash out at. But there's also opportunity that has arisen in some of these areas. We're a little bit overextended. We have sent a heavy tank unit and a cavalry division to try and help stabilize the front in the Baltic. And that's the current situation, guys. We'll see how things play out. But that's the situation in Germany. In China, we just took the Chinese capital, Langkao. That's the second Chinese capital we've taken. And there's one more capital to go at Umrichi, which we've got a ways to advance across a pretty barren area. But we've started to feel a dramatic softening up of the Chinese forces. We destroyed like 6 Chinese units near Langkao. Their supply situation, their morale situation, it's all not good. For the Chinese, that is. Meanwhile, in the south of China, we are dealing with a large British Indian force that has advanced into this region, but they're kind of stuck in an area of bad roads, bad supply, and rough terrain. So that's not the end of the world so far. They haven't really made any serious gains in the last several turns. Meanwhile, Molman has not yet fallen to us in Burma, but hopefully that will fall next turn, and then the next objective will be Rangoon. If that falls, that will cause Burma to fall to us, and actually I just noticed this. If Burma falls, the capital falls, all of Burma falls. If Burma falls, all of these British troops here in China are going to be cut off. They will have no route of supply from China back to India. Currently, I don't know what the route of supply is either. They're just kind of drawing supply from these cities, but they will be surrounded in China and potentially easy prey to be destroyed. But that's the situation right now, guys, and we're trying to get our fleet, the Japanese fleet, back to port so we can refit it and get it ready for future operations after destroying a British fleet on the northern coast of Australia. Anyway, guys, that's the situation. It's July 1943. It's our summer offensive. We'll see how things play out if the Russians start to counterattack here. Chinese morale suffers from the loss of Langkao. China moves the government to Umrichi. I'm assuming survivors from Langkao reform their units in Umrichi. Soviet partisans are hindering supply. Fuck! Soviet partisans just raised a force in Tula. The Polish leader, General Zagorski, is killed in a plane crash. Why did I just not even thinkingly change the way I said that? I don't know. All right, so great. Partisans in our rear at Tula. Now I've got to deal with that too, as if I don't have enough other distractions and issues. It must have been a partisan hex that I pulled a headquarters unit out of and moved it forward to the front. Meanwhile, the British are advancing in Egypt. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to get to Cairo this turn, so Egypt will still remain in our control for a little bit longer. I'm curious what the Soviet unit at Polti will do. They may counterattack this German army here near Tbilisi. Meanwhile, we've also started advancing with Argentina into Brazil. And we've got some submarines on the prowl in the Mediterranean, trying to keep the British or the American fleet there off guard. Meanwhile, this is the first we're seeing of the American Navy in the Pacific since Pearl Harbor, really. A couple of destroyers there going after some of our Japanese submarines. Quite a few Allied destroyers here in the Mediterranean as well, attacking our subs in this region, really driving them back and away from those battleships. Here, it's mid-July 1943 for their turn. Our turn will start on July 30th, so we won't yet be into August. We'll still be in the height of summer. Meanwhile, their bombers decide to attack... Interesting. Their bombers decide to attack our submarines rather than going for our troops in northern Africa. Soviet air units trying to deal some blows to our armor here with some anti-tank tactical aircraft. Not meeting with much success there. We have some good interceptors there. I think Finland will fall this turn also if they attack once more. I didn't reinforce the Italian unit there, honestly. It kind of slipped my mind, but also it's just a garrison unit. Would have had bad experience anyway. Meanwhile, heavy counterattack against these German troops here. These guys to the west of Gorky just got beaten up pretty bad. Oh, fuck. Soviet mechanized troops just flanked us at Reneski, and then the partisans at Kulga and Tula. Oh, fuck. Well, that's disastrous. I guess the only positive thing is this mechanized guy should be really easy to cut off. There goes Finland. They'll be kicked out of the war. It's okay. They weren't really doing much. They were tying down like 5 Soviet units, and that's about it. Meanwhile, Soviet infantry attacking these heavy tanks that we just put into Piskov. It's hanging in there. Not doing a lot. Soviet airborne troops here on the Baltic coast attacking this German corps here, not accomplishing much either. Well, the good thing is we just got those... Oh, they did advance into Alexandria. Wow. Man, these guys moved a lot. They crossed the canal, took Suez, took Alexandria, then moved south and attacked at Cairo. Didn't really do anything at Cairo, but they attacked there nonetheless. Meanwhile, the mechanized troops are trying to flank us here along the coast near Tripoli. So North Africa will have one more turn, I would guess, before it falls to the Allies. I don't know if there's like a trigger if they have to take North Africa before they can land against Italy. I'm hoping that's the case. That means we should have at least 2 more turns before any amphibious landings in Italy, which should give us some additional Italian troops. We've got an Italian armored unit that we're raising, a level 2 armored unit too. It's not a bad one. So that would be able to effectively counter a lot of the American units that we're seeing so far. I don't notice a capital in Libya. That's the interesting thing here. This German corps is really getting pounded. Just got to hope for good weather so our air units can kind of go to work against all these troops in front of them. These armored units are probably going to have to swing west to deal with the partisans and try and open up the rail lines at Tula and Kuluga. We still have this rail line here near Vizima. We'll have to see how things play out here, but a very effective turn for the Soviets. A very bad one, a delaying one, a severe delay for us. In our eastward push, I would imagine. This is the problem. When you get overextended, you leave holes in your line. The enemy can just swing in behind it and you know, mess with all of your plans. Another attack on that corps. Those guys are hanging in there bravely. Interesting. They attacked this unit, and then they both pulled back. Soviet troops pulling north toward this city up here, forming a little bit of a rampart, I think. A headquarters unit just moved into Suez. American units. Sounds like new air units may be operating. Got a sound effect, but I didn't see anything. American destroyers here off New Caledonia. I wonder if we land on Guadalcanal if that'll trigger an American naval response there. If it's even still unoccupied. Our subs haven't seen anything over there. And we could take the whole Solomon Island chain by just taking that capital. That's the weird thing, the way the capitals work in this game, is a lot of the island hopping is kind of pointless. You're better off just going for the capital. If you take the capital of like an island chain like the Dutch East Indies, just the one city there, the whole chain falls. Anyway, Finland falls and the Russians get 183 MPPs. The French battleship Lorient joins the Allies. Foreign Minister reports success in Turkey. The Allies swinging 6% swing to the Allies. Great. Just what we need. All right, well, that's going to do it for the turn. Before we forget about them, our other minor ally in Argentina, Let's swing over there and take a look. British subs in the North Atlantic. American troops near Sydney. Interesting. British heavy cruiser in the Bay of Bengal. Another American... A lot of intelligence coming in this turn. Report to the German High Command. Growth and resistance movements in Europe. Didn't we get this alert last time? Ensure that from January 44, all possible partisan locations are protecting troops. Okay. Alright, I don't know how strong that cruiser is, but let's... Shit! Well, the British Navy is definitely in the Bay of Bengal in strength. It's too bad I pulled my fleet back to reinforce. I'm going to assume that Singapore, as it's kind of building itself back up, will be an effective base for us to reinforce from. All right, reinforce the aircraft there. Reinforce that destroyer. We're going to move our ships down here to potentially counter the British. I'm going to move 2 battleships into the Ionian Sea, or the Amadian Sea, however you pronounce that. This guy's already at full strength, so we'll move that guy to Penang. So we're going to have 1 heavy cruiser, 2 battleships immediately to bear against the Allies. That battleship reinforced 2. Move this carrier next turn, as well as these 2 battleships. This carrier is going to stick around to reinforce itself. The carrier is going to go to Haiphong. See if we can reinforce the air units here. And here, I'm not really sure, but I'd like to keep them kind of local. Meanwhile, this headquarters unit, I'm going to move to Rabaul. And can I get these guys here? Not quite. So we're going to move these to the port of Rabaul, and then we're going to try and make a jump for Kukum next turn. I don't know if... I mean, this unit may get destroyed in transit. We'll have to see how it plays out. Meanwhile, Mulman. Let's destroy you. There you go. National prestige bonus. We took that. We advanced the armor north. Reinforce those guys. Alright, so we should advance on Rangoon next turn. It looks like the British are pulling some reinforcements back that way. Meanwhile, we'll advance on the Chinese troops here in the north. Problem is our air units can't really reach all of them. They can reach some of them, though. At least some of them. Some of them can reach some of them. It's tongue-tied there. Not all of them, though. These guys can't reach. Damn it. 1 hex shy. These guys already bombed. They all can reach just 1 hex shy. It's a little bit frustrating. Alright, this headquarter unit needs to move to Langkau. Okay, maybe we can... so close. We almost finished that unit off. We couldn't finish either off at the end of the day. Meanwhile, we're moving our air units to the front. Alright, so there's going to be partisans in some of these territories, but not all of them. There's one here, though. Alright. Meanwhile, these guys are going to swing south, so... Sion, these bombers can move forward. Alright, so this hopefully will provide supply to these northern hexes. And then this unit should get into Lancon next turn. So we're moving pretty rapidly on these Chinese troops in the north, hopefully to get to Umrichi before the end of the year. That's my objective, is to knock China out of the war by the end of the year. I don't know if these guys have any supply. I'd rather not test it, so we'll reinforce these guys. Can we switch these guys out? Yeah. Alright, so we're going to move this unit to Chongqing, then we're going to move the headquarters unit to Quichao to give these guys better supply. Can't move any of these guys. We really need the mobility perk, but at least Molman fell this turn. So I think that does it for the Japanese. We do need to reinforce this unit here. And that's just about all our money is Japan this turn. So, got a few additional MPPs we can spend on some reinforcements, but that's about it. Alright, so that'll do our turn here. We'll see how things play out next turn as we try and advance. And spend a little bit more money reinforcing some of our other units. Meanwhile, in the... I'd imagine the Americans would go for, for Sicily first, hopefully, before they take Rome. Alright, let's see what we can do here in Russia. This mechanized guy can, frankly, pretty easily be cut off. Also, he might just be able to be destroyed from the air. It will definitely derail us, though. Alright, let's do this. Let's try and move this guy down here. Okay. So that pocket is closed. Relatively easy. And with the destruction of a Soviet mechanized unit, which frankly they were up to 81 units, now they're back down to 80. So that was kind of, honestly, a bit of a waste. Yes, it delays us a little bit, but still a bit of a waste by the Soviets. You know, this unit, I think, is Kugla, or however you pronounce it. Okay. I really don't want to pull that guy back. Alright, we'll let this guy finish off the partisan unit next turn. I'm going to move this headquarter unit to Moscow. Let's see what we want to do here. How dug in are they at Gorky? Level 1. We're going to need to pull these guys out to refit anyway. Honestly, I think we go for Penza first. That's the direction of the Chinese capital. Or not the Chinese, the Russian. Good lord. Words! Alright, so he attacked. He's going to take some casualties. But hopefully we can finish these guys off here. Oh, for fuck's sake. There we go. Alright, so we'll take that city. That moves us a couple of hexes closer. It also shields this mechanized unit from counterattack, so we can reinforce it next turn. Meanwhile, we'll attack this Soviet air unit with our Italian infantry. We'll reinforce this headquarter unit, because you always want to make sure the headquarter units are fully supplied. Part of me just wants to bomb these fucks, but... Alright, let's see. What's the best way to approach Gorky? We've got some fresh units here. I just don't know what I want to do with my strength. We'll attack with this army. Oh, wow. Did 4 damage there. That was pretty good. I'd rather reinforce with those guys if I can. Alright, so we got some interceptor action going on here. Wow, that did 2 damage. They must be level 3 Soviet fighters. These guys already bombed? They did. These guys bomb? No, they didn't. Alright, more Soviet interceptors, more of our escorts. Alright, so we destroyed that unit. Which is good. We'll advance that general direction. Let's see, this guy can attack one more. Nice, he can actually do quite a bit of damage there. This Stuka still has some damage to play out. So let's go for this light armor. And do nothing to it. Great. I would have preferred to finish that light armored unit off. Reinforce him. Reinforce him. Move this army unit over here to protect the flank there. Alright, all of our air units attacked, didn't they? They did. Okay, so we didn't destroy this armored unit, but we did push it back. We destroyed 1 infantry unit to the south of Gorky. Meanwhile, this armor is advancing toward Kazan, which again is threatening Perm and the new capital, which is what I'm going to refer to it from now on, so I don't have to say the actual name. Go ahead and reinforce these guys with what money we can to get them up to level 8 mechanized. Really would like to reinforce that infantry. These guys can go to max. Okay. Meanwhile, we're going to reinforce this heavy armor that just got shot up a bit. We're going to advance some infantry over here. We're going to advance this cavalry here because I really want to, wherever possible, you can attack enemy headquarter units. You should always do it, is what I've been told. Which influences the overall supply of the Soviet troops. So that's a good thing to consider. Okay, also destroying Soviet air units is always handy. Okay. These guys are a little too experienced. We're going to fall them back this way. They may move to try and cut these guys off, so we'll actually do that. There's a small gap here they could potentially try and get into, but I'm not too worried about that. So we just crippled a Soviet headquarter unit here. What's their strength now? 78? Nice. So they've lost 3 units so far? I'm not advancing the Italians. Well, maybe we'll advance them 1 this way. Just to see. This unit is exposed to counterattack, potentially. But so far, no sight, so that probably means there's nothing here, right? Like, nothing until... well, I don't know. They could be there. But at least nothing out to here, so we'll have to see. Be interesting if their capital is very lightly guarded. It would seem weird to me that they would do that. But I suppose it's possible. Soviet heavy armor moved west to Poti. It's a weird decision to me. Okay, so we just took Tbilisi. Gonna bomb the Soviet heavy armor. See what we can do to reduce it. We're gonna upgrade these tanks to level 3. They're gonna be our first level 3 tanks, I think. We're gonna drop paratroopers here behind. Well, here's the question. What's the supply situation look like? Nice. Then I'm going to drop these paratroopers into Poti. So they've now cut this Soviet heavy armor unit off there. Brilliant. Brilliant! These guys are surrounded, so we should be able to finish them off next turn relatively easily. These guys are going to march south. Alright, so we moved the mechanized unit in here. We took a 15 MPP value oil field from the Soviets. Very nice. They may counterattack, but I think we can hopefully hold them off. They're both cores. So that's my hope. Reinforce these guys. Reinforcements all along the line. Need to hold the Soviets as much as we can. Interesting. The Soviet national morale objective at Vornozev, or however you pronounce it, is at risk. I've kind of got some Italian troops here at a little bit of risk. A little bit too far forward, probably. Meanwhile, this armored unit's level 3 and is ready to roll next turn, if necessary, to counterattack up north here near Stalingrad. Okay. So we at least countered those pockets. We didn't fully remove this pocket, but it should be gone next turn. I mean, they could make a move. I think we have... units adjacent to every... Oh, there's no one here. Alright, well that bomber's going to go south anyway. Alright, so we've got every potential partisan unit here is adjacent. Meanwhile, let's operate this tank, unless... Do we want to upgrade it? It'll take one more turn. I think, honestly, I'd rather just have him on the front. Level 10 tank on the front. Question is, where do we want them? I guess we'll move them here. They can finish off that partisan unit next turn, free up some other guys. Meanwhile, this artillery, I think, will be useful in the reduction of Grozny, because we don't have a ton of troops down there. This headquarter unit, I think, will be useful... Well, I mean, it'll be useful in a lot of places, but I really would like to buff up the supply situation on the Moscow front, so we'll do that. I think maybe we'll get like a stacking benefit. It's also a level 3 headquarter unit, level 3 experience, so that's good. This Italian army, we'll operate them. Right into the thick of things over by this Italian headquarters unit near Stalingrad. These infantry need to reinforce before they can go anywhere. Okay. Well, this was the headquarter unit in Italy, or in North Africa, but we'll leave these guys in Italy. Meanwhile, I think pretty much all these troops have pulled out. We could transport these guys out. Yeah, Tripoli will fall for sure next turn, but at least we get these guys out. We get a garrison unit out that might be useful on the continent. Spend a very small amount to reinforce them. These guys south to help with Grozny, or Baku, I think, is... So, this armored unit should be dead next turn, which would be nice. Assuming it doesn't do anything surprising. This guy's a level 5 only? Damn. Didn't do anything against him. Interesting. I didn't realize he was so weak. I don't know why he was so weak. I don't want to attack that. I thought maybe we'd get a lick in on an engineer unit, but that seems like he's gonna die right here. They'll probably close this pocket, destroy these units, but should take some of their effort away from other areas, maybe. Meanwhile, I really like the idea of moving this headquarter unit. With these guys all clumped around Moscow, I'd prefer to move these guys east. But we'll probably wait one turn till this city's open. Okay. I wasn't even thinking about partisans as I was moving these guys around, but it doesn't look like it matters. They're still going to be adjacent to everything. Alright, so that should do it for the German front. With the exception of... Is there anyone over here we want to... Well, we probably want to upgrade. We'll probably also want to upgrade these guys. And then rail them east. Not enough money to do it this turn. Reinforce the guys at Gunnar again. Okay. Alright, so I think that does it for the... Actually, forgot about these guys. I'll move them back to Trondheim and see if we can reinforce them. Yeah, so that does it for this turn. I'm curious about the casualty. So they're down to 77 units, actually, which is the weakest we've seen the Soviets. So they're kind of... They may be... I wouldn't say a death spiral, but they may be past the point where they can replace their losses with their income here, which is definitely encouraging. Actually, was this... Oh, that's convoy income. Never mind. Soviets, yeah, another very heavy loss for them. So their economy may not be able to keep up with the casualties they're suffering, which is hopeful for us. But it's also one of those things where it's a race against the clock and the ever-increasing experience and et cetera, et cetera. So it's and just the massive terrain and the approach of winter. It is anything but a for sure thing. Also, the fall of Finland and the additional 100+ MPPs there, that may give their economy a bit of a boost. And actually, they even border... They could move into Norway through Finland now. That's concerning. Anyway, those are all things to be aware of. Let's move to China, or did we already move in China? I think we already moved in China, so we may be done. This may be it for the turn. I'm trying to think. Did we do Argentina? No, we didn't. Okay. So can we upgrade these guys? No. So let's see if we can... We're going to get stuck in a situation where we can never actually... Oh, yes. We drove them out of the city of Porto Alegre. They'll probably... I don't know if they can reinforce here or not, but hopefully we can finish them off and destroy them next turn, and then advance on Sao Paulo, and then eventually Rio de Janeiro on the Argentine front. Meanwhile, did we move everybody else? I think we did. Is everybody over here upgraded to their max? Some of these units aren't. Max out what we can anyway. Alright, so I think that's going to do it for this turn, guys. I hope this was another entertaining episode. We'll have to see how things play out next turn. But I think we have successfully reached the point where as long as the weather cooperates for a few more turns in the north, hopefully we can obliterate these guys, drive west toward Gaozhou, and then Umrichi. Hopefully before the end of the year we can say China is ours, and then we can make some tough decisions about where to push next as Japan. Maybe we can advance into Rangoon, take Burma, and then cut all these British troops off from behind. Potentially also looming is a large major naval engagement in the Bay of Bengal against the British Navy there. That also is contingent, though, because the Americans could make a major push in the Pacific, and we'd have to respond to that, too. So we haven't seen that yet. Meanwhile, there's no invasion of Sicily yet. I'm sure I'm jinxing that to occur next turn. But Sicily and Italy are definitely... The soft underbelly of Europe is very exposed to a potential counterattack there. From a diplomacy perspective, the Italians have one chit. Syria's kind of hanging in there at 66. They probably are like, I don't know if we want to get involved here. Venezuela. Is there anybody else close to joining the Allies? Everybody else seems kind of content to sit out the war. Research. Any research Italy can do. I just feel like any money that we spend on research for Italy at this point is going to be lost. So I think we'll kind of hold steady there. What about production? Where are we at right now? Germany's production catalog. They have, in August, so next month, we've got an army, level 2 infantry army coming up. And then September, so the next 2 turns, we'll get another heavy tank and another heavy infantry unit. The Italians also next turn will get a heavy tank unit. The Japanese have a carrier, but not till next year. So next turn should be a good one for the Allied Germans, at least in terms of manpower. We should get 3 additional units in the next 2 turns, which should hopefully allow us to sort of transition them to the Russian front and maybe get a little bit of momentum coming as we approach fall before things get too late in 43 and the eventual onslaught of the Allies come. I'm hoping we have 2 turns before anything lands in Italy, though. Again, if the Allies land in Italy, we're kind of screwed. We're going to have to pull essentially everything we just pulled out of Africa. We'll have to get redeployed, and then some to deal with the enemy troops there. I really wish we could deal with Sevastopol, but right now we've just got that corps cut off behind the lines because I don't have the manpower or strength or have the desire to divert to face them. How's the actual national morale of the Chinese after the fall of their second capital? 44%. I don't know what the surrender point is, but presumably they'll surrender as soon as we take them, Richie. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed yet another episode of the Strategic Command World War II, World at War Let's Play that we're playing. And, yeah, I'm going to sign off here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, thanks for watching.